All right, let's get the music off. You guys want to close that door for me, if you could? Could we just shut that? Thanks. Okay. Thank you guys all so much for coming out tonight. This is actually the first forefront of 2019, which we're really excited about. Yes. Have you guys all been to a forefront before, or is this anyone's first time? Anyone hasn't? Oh, a couple people. Welcome. We have an incredible guest for you guys today. I couldn't think of someone better to kick off the year. This is just one of the most incredible human beings that I know, who has an unbelievable life story, a very inspirational life story. I've actually known Khalil for about 15 years now, and we just reconnected not too long ago when we opened this location here, and that's his company, which is right across the way, SunLife Organic. And to hear his story and see what he's accomplished over these last 15 years is just unbelievable. And he's such an inspiration with what he's accomplished in his life and how he's used his personal life journey that he's been through as an inspiration to build this business that's growing immensely and is really doing a lot of good for the world. So I'd like to please welcome Khalil up to the desk.
Buddy. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, everybody, for coming out. I was not expecting this. I was obsessing all afternoon about two things. It's pouring down rain. There's mudslides. I live in Malibu, so it's pandemonium. It's helter-skelter there. It's pouring down rain. No one's going to show up, number one. And number two, you're probably going to walk out with a pee stain on your pants, and everyone's going to see it, and they're going to laugh at you if anyone is there. So you're all here. I'm good, I think. And yeah, this is cool. This is really cool. I will just jump right in because it is 2019, and it is the new year, and what most of us think about when those types of milestones happen, birthdays, New Year's Eve, et cetera, is change. And what we want to change or what we'd like to accomplish, what our goals are. We're encouraged to journal, we're encouraged to write, et cetera. If your experience is anything like mine was for many, many years, I would make these grand lists of, everything I was going to do, and usually nothing happened. As life went on and became more and more difficult, even more of that took place. Goals just weren't happening for me. And I ultimately got to a place in my life where I was living in a wilderness of pain, and I had given up. I had lost all hope. I wound up in 2001, right around 2001, I was addicted to heroin and crack, and I lost everything, and I wound up in downtown LA on Skid Row, and that was it. I gave up. There was no maybe I'll do this or maybe I'll do that. There was no one I could fall back on. There was nothing. It was over. And I remember very specifically walking around on a very, very hot day in downtown LA. You always had to move. You couldn't be stationary because you would get robbed or beat up or killed or whatever. So I was on the move, and I had one flip-flop on, and the other flip-flop was kind of broken and hanging off, and I was shuffling down the street, mumbling something to myself, and all of a sudden, everything just came together. And, yourself, they say self can't reveal self to self. In that moment, I was revealed to myself, and I saw the mess that I had become. I was one of those crazy people, muttering to myself, shuffling down the street. I was 109 pounds. I had scabies. I had ringworm. I was extremely malnourished. My teeth were falling out of my head. I was a walking corpse. I was addicted to crack and heroin, a high school dropout, a convicted felon, and I was newly 31, 32 years old at the time. I wasn't about to make a list of my big goals that I was going to accomplish in the coming year. I gave up. I conceded. It was overdose after overdose. It was seizure after seizure, hospitalization after hospitalization. And I'm not a big guy. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not one of those people that has one of those really cool stories where I was out like robbing and stealing. I had to do other stuff to get my drug money. And I don't want to go too into that, but you can use your imagination. And that was my life. That was my life. So after a series of really, really awful things happening to me, I threw in the towel. I called this woman that I used to shack up with from time to time who used to let me stay at her place, and she would give me money and drugs in exchange for my company. Her name was Penny. She claimed that she was the woman that they wrote the song Penny Lane after. I did the math. I don't think it lined up. Unless the Beatles were, dating a 5-year-old. And I called Penny because she knew this dude named Bob Forrest, and Bob Forrest was supposedly this guy that could, because I was a musician, he could get me into rehab for free. And the way that I had been living, I was fairly convinced nothing came for free, right? But she made this claim that this dude, Bob Forrest, was going to get me into treatment for free. And so she called Bob, and then somehow we got connected, and I got a hold of Bob, and Bob said, yeah, just come on down to Music Cares, and, we'll get you into treatment. You're going to be fine. And I'm just like, what does that mean? What do you mean? I'm not like, I don't want to go to treatment, and I don't want, you're not going to put me in one of those halfway houses, but, and immediately went into that crazy. But I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had nothing. I had no fight left in me. I just surrendered. And I went to... It was actually called MAP at the time. It's called Music Cares now. I went to MAP. There was a guy that was working there named Buddy Arnold. Buddy was an old retired jazz musician, and I made Buddy's skin crawl. He did not want to help me. He did not want to send me to treatment. He did not want to have anything to do with me, but I literally wouldn't leave his office. I just cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And eventually, just to shut me up and get me out of his office, they sent me to Pasadena Recovery Center. He called Mike Bloom, the owner of Pasadena Recovery Center, in front of me and said, I don't want to see this fucking guy ever again. I'll give you $1,000 if you take him off my hands. And Mike Bloom said, yeah, or Dr. Bloom said yes. And that was June 15th, 2003. My sobriety date is June 18th, 2003. Because I was pretty medicated for those first few days. But I was so desperate, and I was so sick, and I was so tired, and I was so worn out that on the third day I went to the nurse and I said, no more Lexapro, no more Wellbutrin, no more Trazodone, no more Seroquel, no more nothing. I can't do this anymore. I can't just keep taking stuff to try to feel different. I can't do it anymore. And, they had me on Suboxone, Subutex, whatever it was, and sat me down, gave me the lecture, like, you cannot go off everything. You have no idea what's going to happen to you. You could die. I said, I don't care. I got to face this sooner or later. I'm going to face it right now. And for the next 3 weeks, my body turned inside and out. My body turned different colors. I vomited up bile. I shat bile. I laid in my own filth and tears and piss and sweat. And I went through it. So that was then. And thank you. And here we are 15 years later. And my life is obviously a lot different now. My body is a lot different now. My state of mind is a lot different now. I would love to tell you that I stopped doing drugs and I got out 30 days later and my life just came together and everything was wonderful. I have to be very, very honest with you guys, especially anybody who's going through any type of mental illness or depression or co-occurring disorders. It took about 18 months for me to stop hearing voices, for me to stop thinking that someone was coming after me to kill me, for me to stop getting up in the middle of the night and checking the locks on the door over and over and over again, for me to stop taking all of the food out of the refrigerator and looking at it because I knew that someone had come in and put poison in that food. I got to share that stuff. I have to be honest about that stuff because that's what I went through. And that shit is real. And it doesn't matter how many times my friends were like, dude, you're tripping, you're okay, like everything's okay. It took about 18 months. It took about 18 months for my brain to rewire itself. So I don't want to get too caught up in the past because I do want to talk about the present because the present is so amazing. But I did want you guys to have a reference point of where I came from. Now, if it weren't for 12-step meetings of many different kinds, I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't be here today. I did 12-step meetings every single day, 7 days a week, usually twice a day. 12-step meetings, definitely the foundation of my recovery. If it weren't for yoga, and I got into yoga accidentally. I was working at a rehab center, and a girl that was a client wanted to go to yoga. I was supposed to meet her at a yoga studio in Malibu, and working at rehab was the only job I could get, by the way. So, but anyway, she never showed up. But I was out front, and I was smoking my cigarette, and this girl walked by, in her yoga outfit, this goddess of a woman named Lydia. And she walked up the stairs, and I watched her, and I threw my cigarette down, and I marched up right after her. And when I walked in, she was behind the counter. Like, I'm behind the counter, she's behind the counter. And she's like, "Are you here to take the class?" I'm like, "Who's the teacher?" She's like, "I am." I'm like, "Yep, I'm going to take the class." Oh, my God. She is so beautiful. So we went in. It was a series 2-3. And had my mat, and as banged up as I was and as little as I am, I'm strong. Like I'm a fighter. I'm strong. My mom's from Poland. My dad's from Palestine. I'm a Polish Arab, half Muslim, half Jew, raised Catholic. Like I'm a strong little dude. But I got to tell you, it took all of about 10 minutes where I was shaking in ways like that you can't even imagine. I was shaking, and I kept slipping off of the rental mats are super thin, so I just kept like slipping and falling. And about 10 minutes in, she just came over and she put her hand on my back, and it was like a goddess, had touched me, and she just pushed me down, and she said, "Stay, just stay." And I laid there on my belly. I just laid there on my belly, shaking and convulsing and sweating. But I'll be damned if I wasn't back at her class. I had her schedule memorized. And I went back every single time she taught. I became obsessed. And something really interesting happened. I don't know the time frame because it was 15 years ago. But it was, several weeks, several months, I don't know, when I actually started to become adept into staying into upward and downward, or downward dog. Downward dog. I became used to that, right? And I started to get some of the moves down. When I went into pigeon for the first time, and I stayed, she got me into that pigeon. It was a struggle, but she got me into that pigeon. And again, she came over, and she had that thing, that you can't teach, and even if you take 500 hours of teacher training. She had that thing, and I was in pigeon, and she came over, and she just placed her hand on me, and I lost my shit. I started crying and crying and crying and crying, and it was so great. And the best thing about going to yoga at that time and going to that yoga studio where she taught, it was all women. It was all women. I just felt love. I felt this intense love from everybody in that room. Not that if it were men, I wouldn't have felt love. Maybe I would have. So some of the issues that were stored in the tissues began to exercise themselves from my being. And also, at that time, my friend Sean, who's like this hippie dude that lived in his Volkswagen bus that was really into juicing and superfoods and all that, he was bringing me over juices in mason jars. He was bringing me goji berries. We're talking about 15 years ago. I know that it's going to be difficult to conceive, but 15 years ago, people didn't eat goji berries. No one knew what a raw cacao bean was, right? You would look at that word, you would go, cocoa? You didn't say cacao. You didn't say acai, right? Because there wasn't any. Those kids from Samazon had not gone to the Brazil yet to bring that stuff back to us. Sean knew about all that stuff. Sean was mail ordering and getting all of these, Brazil nuts and raw macadamia nuts from Hawaii, bringing me avocados. And I started eating this stuff, and my body started to get better and better and stronger and stronger. There was this amazing girl. Some of you guys probably remember her name, Genevieve. She had Rawvolution on Main Street. Does anybody remember Genevieve? So before Rawvolution, before Matt and Genevieve started Rawvolution, Genevieve had this tiny little addict on Lincoln and something. She had this addict where she sold superfoods. She was like a drug dealer, unlicensed, up in this attic. And we would go up there, and she loved me. And Sean would take me there, and he would buy me Vitamineral greens. He would buy me Pure Synergy powder. He would buy me goji berries. He would buy me blue-green algae. And like a good drug addict, I took something and it felt good, so I took more. And I took more, and I took more. And it got to the point where I'm taking just tablespoons of Vitamineral greens or tablespoons of Pure Synergy powder, just mixing it in water, empty stomach, just downing it, and detoxifying and fortifying and tonifying and bringing that life force into my body all at the same time, coupled with the yoga, coupled with the nutritional component, coupled with the 12-step programs that I was going to, which was exercising a lot of that shame and a lot of that guilt and a lot of those horrible beliefs I had about myself were coming out of me. And then my buddy Elijah, some of you probably even know this cat, but my buddy Elijah dragged me to the Hare Krishna temple. And again, I had no money. I was starving. We go to this place on Venice Boulevard. Takes me to this place on Venice Boulevard on a Sunday. And we walk up, and he's saying prasad, I don't know how you pronounce it, but he's like, yeah, man, they're going to give you this food. And I'm like, I don't have any money. And he's like, it's free. And I'm like, again, it can't be free. It's like, dude, it's free. Just come with me and chant Hare Krishna. I'm like, that's it? And he's like, yeah. And I went, and I ate this food, and he explained to me that the people at that temple, they bless that food for 24 hours before you eat it, right? So now I'm eating this blessed food by these monks who are jumping around, and their happiness is infectious. And then I meet a girl, and she takes me to the Self-Realization Fellowship, and I start going and to the service and reading and hearing about Paramahansa Yogananda and his teachings. And someone introduced me to Krishnamurti, and someone introduced me to Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, we're supposed to call him Osho now. The point is, this transformation was going on over many years. I wish I could tell you I went to PRC, I got out, I detoxed, and I became a millionaire. Wouldn't that be great? It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Slow, small, tiny changes made over a sustained period of time began to transform my life. And there were small victories all along the way. There were feel-good, as Oprah would say, aha moments all along the way. There were moments of serendipity that if I explained them to you, you wouldn't believe me. There were moments of profound spiritual transformation that took place. I remember when I was broke before I could get the job at rehab, Lou Gossett Jr. had hired me to walk his dogs. And they were these big, giant black labs named Kingfish and Tar Heel. And I'm not a dog person at all, any stretch of the imagination. I'm a cat person. I'm that dude. I like cats. I don't like dogs. But it was my job. I had to take care of the dogs, right? These were these giant dogs. And when Lou was around, because they were trained so perfectly, they were the best behaved dogs you've ever seen in your life. But the moment Lou went inside, or if Lou was out of town, those dogs became themselves, and they didn't give a shit about training. And these dogs would take off and just yank my shoulders out of the sockets and take me back to this wooded area called Zuma Canyon. And they would run, and I would run after them because, if I lose these dogs, this big, tall, black dude who's giving me $500 a month is going to be really mad, right? I was so naive, I didn't even know he was an actor at first. That took months until I finally saw the Academy Award sitting on his shelf. So these dogs took me back to this canyon, and in the wintertime, like now when it rains, there's a stream that goes through there. And I started having these mystical experiences where I would sit on this tree stump and I would close my eyes and I would meditate, and like I would open my eyes and there'd be a coyote just sitting, staring right at me. Or I'd be going on like a little walk trying to find the dogs, like a little jog, and I would look and there would be a mountain lion. Or I'm sorry, not a mountain lion, a bobcat. Thank God it was a mountain lion. There would be a bobcat literally just like looking at me. And I'm like, is this shit real? Do they even have these in California? I'm from Ohio, by the way. Should have prefaced it with that. And there would be, you know, bobcats. There would be, and I would have these experiences where I could feel the presence of God coming closer and closer and closer to me. You know, I don't want to bore you to death with the transformation of the spiritual stories and the yoga and the nutrition and all that, but it is important to understand that I had to get to a point where I had to take responsibility for everything that was going on in my life. I had to take responsibility for everything going on in my life. I was taught that through those self-help books and through those 12-step programs. I had to go and I had to make amends to people. I had to learn how to be a worker amongst workers. I had to learn what it was like to chop wood and carry water. I had to go work. I had to go work. Work cleanses your soul. Work cleanses your soul. We can do all the secret and the dances and put the right headdresses on and say the right chants and go sit on the right trees, but unless we're willing to get up in the morning and go to work, we're not going to get what we want. So all that stuff is important. Again, without the yoga, without the reaching towards my divinity, finding a God of my understanding, I wouldn't be alive today. I was the type of guy that when I ran out of heroin and coke, does anyone know what stomping your cottons means? When you push on your cottons? So your cotton is your little filter. So you stomp on it with the plunger of your thing. And eventually I just got to the point where I wouldn't even kid myself. I would just shoot hot water or cold water. That's how bad of an addict I was. I needed it that badly. So I needed all of that stuff to get to where I am today. So let's start getting into some of the good stuff. So I did what they call the 12 steps. I went through them, I think, about 4 times. I made my amends to people. I stopped feeling a lot of shame. I got really into Byron Katie for about a year. If any of you guys have ever done the work, I think she calls it the work. I was really into the Byron Katie stuff for a while. That helped me tremendously. And then I just kind of got to a place where I'm like, wow, I guess I'm not that old. And I guess I have something to contribute. And I guess I can start to dream again. So I started to dream again. And I started to think about what it really was I wanted in my life. Not my passion. I was so, you hear people all the time like, figure out what your passion is and then run with it. Shooting heroin and having sex with girls is my passion. Okay? That is not going to pay the bills long term. I had to find out what my purpose was. What was my purpose? And through the love and example of my amazing mother, and through the horrible example of my very, very angry father, I was taught the difference between right and wrong. And I saw my mom, who worked with terminally ill people for 31 years of her life, this little frail Polish woman who had nothing, who was left high and dry by this angry, violent man, found so much joy and so much happiness long before I ever cracked open Man's Search for Meaning or found out about Viktor Frankl or the Ark or any of that stuff. I saw my mom doing it in real life. And I found when I was working at those rehabs, I hated it because it was a job, but I loved making little juices and smoothies for people because when Sean did that for me, it made me feel good. And when I did that for those people, it made them feel good and it made me feel good. Eventually, I opened up my own place called Riviera Recovery, and I did that on a shoestring and a prayer. I had saved every penny. I worked 4 jobs. I worked 18 hours a day, not every day, but 14, 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I had no social life. I took every penny I had and I invested it in physical silver and gold, not because I'm smart. I didn't know anything about the markets or anything about, numismatics. I was just lucky. I was paranoid, to be honest with you. because it seemed like the world was about to end. It seemed like the economy was about to collapse. Everybody kept talking about how bartenders and, you know, housekeepers were buying 5 houses and then renting them out. Something didn't seem right in 2004, 2005. Something didn't seem right. I got real nervous when I saw houses go 10x. So I was buying silver and gold because I was paranoid. And as some of you probably know or figured out by now, silver and gold over the next, 5 years went 4x. It quadrupled. It went parabolic. So I sold some of that gold. I bought that amazing, loving mom of mine a house back in Ohio, the greatest accomplishment of my life to this day, and I'll never do anything that will be better than getting her that house. And then I opened up Riviera Recovery with the rest of my money on a shoestring and a prayer, and it went really well, and I made some money. But I found as I got into the making of the money off of the recovery, something started to feel icky. Something started to feel weird. It didn't sit well with me, and I'll tell you why. Because the people that came in, like so many, that were like, I'll do anything, I never want to get high again, I want an amazing life, and you seem like the guy that can help me to get there. Those people that really wanted help, I did anything and everything. There's a guy, Rick, he came in, everyone said, don't take him, he's a psycho, he's never going to get clean or sober, and I took him anyway. He used to come every single morning. I lived there at Riviera Recovery. Every morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. You up? I am now. I want to get high. I understand. And I would get up, and I would put on my flip-flops, and I would walk out, and I would take him for a walk. Next morning, I want to get high. I understand. I would get up, I would walk him down to the ocean, and we would go jump in the freezing cold. If he really wanted to get high so bad that he'd be shaking like I used to, we would go jump in the ocean in January, February, March, and we would do these things called mikvahs that I learned about at the Kabbalah Center, where we would go under the water and we would put the tongue to the roof of our mouth. And, look, the specifics aren't that important. The religion isn't that important. The action is important. The fact that we did something. That's what's important. There's a God, that I know for sure. What that God's name is, I have no idea. I don't want to know. It's probably a woman and is very, very loving. That's all I know. So yeah, this Rick dude just turned 10 years sober. His dream was to go to Kelly Slater's wave pool. Thank you. And I arranged that. I made that happen. I took him to Kelly's wave pool, and he got to get barreled, and he got to ride waves all day. So back to Riviera Recovery. If you wanted help and you really needed help, I would do anything to help you. But what do you do about the dude who checks in because he got arrested and his parents want him there, and his parents are going to pay you $10,000 a month to house their child that does not want to be sober? And he has made it perfectly clear to you he doesn't give a shit about being clean or sober, doesn't care about God, doesn't care about anything, just wants his parents off their back. You're getting paid. Shut the F up, blah, blah, blah. And then to make matters worse, now the parents are like, oh, we want the extended, we want the special, I can't even remember what we called it, where we would monitor them and we would take care of them and for an additional fee. Now I'm really feeling like a scumbag, right? The kid doesn't want to be sober, and by kid, he's 35. And the parents are now throwing me 3 extra dimes a month because they want me to babysit him. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It ate me alive. I couldn't do it. I did it as long as I could because it was all I could do. What else was I going to do? I have no talents. I have no talents. That's not me trying to be humble in front of you. I don't need to be humble in front of you. I have no talent. I have no real skills. I have no vocational training. What was I going to do? But I was making these juices and these smoothies in Riviera Recovery in the kitchen. I was giving them to the clients, and the clients are tripping out, and they're just grabbing on. They wanted more. They wanted more. You can read about it in my book. This one girl, Sarah, who was the most combative human being I'd ever dealt with in my life. Arms crossed. Fuck you. I don't care. The only reason I'm here is so I don't go to prison. And she came out one morning where I was taking a bunch of Premier Research Laboratories, the super expensive liquid vitamins, and I was putting them in my cup of water, and I was downing them to clean out my gallbladder and my liver. And she was like, "What is that shit?" I said, it's vitamins. Brad's laughing as you know her, right? He said, what is that shit? I said, it's vitamins. She said, why do you take it? I said, because it makes me feel high. It makes me feel great. She's like, can I get some? I said, sure. Now, keep in mind, this is like massive amounts of B vitamins, massive amounts of, I can't remember what the 4 different bottles were, but like massive amounts of goodness, life force, right? Premier Research Laboratory. That shit was like $160 a little bottle. I pour some in a cup. I give it to her. She takes it out of my hand. She goes back to her room. Like 2 seconds later, she comes walking out. She goes, I feel amazing. What was that? I'm like, vitamins. And she's like, but I feel amazing. I'm like, I get it, Sarah. And she's like, can I get more? And I'm like, no. And she's like, why not? And I'm like, because it's really expensive stuff, and it's going to give you diarrhea if you take more. But I'll tell you what, you meet me out here tomorrow morning, I will give you more. And that's how me and Sarah connected. That's how we bonded. Every single day, Sarah came out, and she got her little cocktail of Premier Research Laboratory vitamins, and then she wanted to know what was the smoothie I was drinking and what's that weird green shit you're drinking. And slowly but surely over time, the transformation that I saw happen to me happened to her. Now here's where it gets crazy. She ultimately got off all of her meds. Took time. She drank some vitamins and stopped taking psych meds. But over a series of months, her doctors titrated her off of everything. She also went through interferon. She got rid of the hepatitis C. She ended up staying 18 months. I had to kick her out eventually. I literally had to kick her out. You got to go live your life now. You got to go be a mom. She didn't want to leave. She was a little baby bird that didn't want to leave the nest because she wanted me to keep feeding her. And I get that because I'm still, a lot of the time, that little baby bird that doesn't want to leave the nest, right? Sarah lives in Arcadia, Arizona, right by Scottsdale. She got all of her kids back from the state. She has 3 kids. She is one of the most amazing moms on the planet. Sarah, this meth addict, blah, 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 now eats only organic food. She started the first all-organic farmers market in Scottsdale, Arizona. She volunteers at her kid's school. I'll take it a step further. One day we're on the phone and her kid's in the background screaming, Mom, we gotta go. And I'm like, tell him to shut up. We're having a conversation. She's like, no, we gotta go. I gotta do this thing. I'm like, you gotta do what thing? We're having a conversation. She's like, no, I gotta. I'm like, Sarah, what do you gotta do that's so important? She's like, I'm not gonna tell you because you're gonna make fun of me. I'm like, I'm gonna make fun of you anyway. What do you gotta do right now that is so important? She goes, I gotta go to church. I'm like, what the fuck did you just say? She said, I got to go to church. I'm like, you go to church. Miss, I don't believe in God. And she said, my kid came home one day and he wanted to go to church. And we went to church and I felt something. I'm like, you're Jewish. She's like, who cares? She said, I felt something. So she goes to church and she's an amazing mom. And if it wasn't for that morning, and this is her talking, not me, of her coming out and trying those vitamins, I don't know if she'd be alive. She was facing serious time in prison. Her kids had been taken away by the state. She had no money. She had no skills. She had no career. She's an amazing woman now. She's dating this dude that's like 15 years younger than her because she's so hot and he's so awesome. And they have this great relationship. And I make fun of her all the time about that. And she's one of my best friends. But how about back to the dude that just didn't want to get clean or sober, which was usually about 20% of the clients. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. I ended up selling Riviera Recovery, a business that was making me between $20,000 and $40,000 a month. I ended up selling the entire thing, everything. Not the house, I didn't own the house, but I ended up selling the entire business to a kid I used to smoke crack with because he had just gotten fired from his job. And I said, how much money do you have? He's like, to my name? I'm like, yeah. He's like, 20,000? I'm like, you bring me $20,000 tomorrow, I'll give you Riviera Recovery. He did. And he runs it 1,000 times better than I ever did. And he has the proper vetting processes to make sure that people aren't coming in that don't want to be there. And he's running a fabulous business now, and it's incredible. And he went on to buy a house and get married and have kids. So I guess to bring it all back to what I said when I first came out here, 2019, New Year's Eve, we can change if we want to. I got a million stories, and I could talk all night about miracles I've seen happen, my own life included. And I can't take any credit for that because I am the grateful recipient of a living, loving God who graced me with that moment of clarity and grace and love. And I didn't take it for granted. I'll take credit for that. I was willing to chop wood and carry water. I'll take credit for that. I had a lot of amazing people, benefactors that came into my life that, like Lou Gossett, like Cindy Landon, like all these people that gave me little jobs and hired me and gave me money and encouraged me and loved me. But just as I started out as a broken little boy who watched his mom get beat every day, who was held down against his will and had horrible things done to him by his own sibling, who was much, much older, who had horrible things done to me against my will as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old boy by my swim coach, who I looked up to and really, really wanted to be like, and was one of the few people on the earth that I trusted. How I went from that broken little boy in that shattered, hopeless state into the drugs, into that lifestyle, into crime, into addiction, into 33 years old and my life being a wilderness of pain, to 15 years later, I stand in front of you, the owner and I guess CEO of, I don't even know what that means, CEO of a company that employs over 400 people. We will do over $12 million this year in sales. That's one of the businesses that I started. And look, I'm not saying that shit to impress you because there's probably people in here that will do, $400 million this year in sales. I'm saying it because I want you to understand that if there's something about your life that you want to change, Jesus Christ, look at the guy who's standing in front of you and look at the change that has taken place from a 109-pound walking corpse on the verge of death to a 161-pound happy, successful guy who's employing a lot of people and went from being a detriment to society to being an asset. If I can do that, if an idiot like me with no skills and no real talent, I'm the guy they were like, well, we'll hold him back again. In 6th grade, like, well, we'll hold him back again. I shut down. You're listening to a 6th grader right now. You're listening to a 6th grader. I can't spell. I can't type. It didn't stop me from writing a best-selling book that's in 4 different languages. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can change whatever you want. I am living proof of that. I'm guessing that most of you in this room are not suffering from any grave addictions like I was at that time. But look, going from being homeless to not doing drugs and having a job sometimes is a lot easier than not eating pizza every night, or not eating a pint of ice cream, or not looking at porn, or not overspending money that you don't have. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. That's the shit that I did, right? It's easy to go, I shouldn't be shooting heroin and smoking crack, but why shouldn't I be looking at pornography, right? I'll tell you why. For me, this is not about you, but for me, it diminishes me as a man. It warps my sense of perception, of love. It sickens me. It dirties me. It makes me a part of something I don't want to be a part of. I think everything is energy. I don't think everything is energy. Everything is energy, right? That's a fact. I don't want to be a part of that energy. I don't want to be a part of that energy. I don't want to look at that stuff. You know, there probably are men and women out there that love doing porn. I'm guessing there's probably a lot more that don't. And it's eating away at them and they can't get out of it, you know? Or the stripper or whatever. That's just not my jam. But it's easy to justify it, right? The pizza, the Doritos, the glass bottle Mexican Coca-Colas, like, you know, it got to the point I'm talking sober. I'm drinking 5 of those things a day and eating a Reuben every day at Malibu Kitchen, burying 2 bags of chips, wondering why my face is round and fat, wondering why I got a giant gut. That's stuff that I went through. That stuff is not easy to stop and to overcome. But you can. You can overcome it. The credit card debt, the overspending, the gambling, whatever it is, whatever your jam is, I've done most. I've done most. And I can tell you for the most part, I can happily report to you, standing in front of you, I live an incredibly boring life, and I couldn't be happier. I could not be happier. I go to bed at 9:30 at night. I get up before the sun. I got a bunch of money in the bank. I got no debt. I walk into my businesses and people cheer. That's no joke. I walk in and people cheer. They yell my name. They fist bump me. They high five me. They hug me. They're excited to see me. Me, that piece of shit, living under a bridge, smoking crack and doing push-throughs and, you know, picking up dirty needles off the street and sharing needles with people, that fucking hopeless parasite. Me. They're cheering for me. They're cheering for me. And the book was amazing. I own a yoga studio now. I still don't know how to teach yoga. I don't want to know how to teach yoga. I just want to go into my yoga studio and I want to do yoga and I want to get in a pigeon and I want to cry. My life went from a wilderness of pain to being the most incredible life I've ever heard about. I got lots of fancy friends now because I feed them, you know. I got 2 places in Malibu and I feed them. And the weird thing about those famous people, if you feed them and ignore them versus asking them for a selfie upon meeting them, if you feed them and you leave them alone, it eats them alive. They don't know what to do with themselves. They got to invite you over to watch a UFC fight sooner or later. They got to invite you to their concert. They got to invite you to the movie set to show you what they do. Because you know why? They are us. They're just like us. But the last thing on earth they want is someone asking them to take a picture with them or someone talking to them about their latest record or latest movie, right? What they want is someone to watch the UFC fight with, or to go on a run with, or to go paddleboarding with, or to go on a trip with. I've been all over the world. I've been all over the world with some really, really amazing people. I would not for 1 second trade places with any of those people. I would not. I love my life. I love the life that God has blessed me with. I love the life that my sobriety has afforded me. I love what I do. If someone, and Brad and I talk about this all the time, and Haley, my partner, and I talk about this all the time, if someone were to walk in tomorrow, whoever, Coca-Cola, Dannon, Johnson & Johnson, if someone were to walk in tomorrow and say, Mr. Rafati, we're going to give you $1 billion for SunLife Organics. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd take it. I'll take it. But where would I be the next morning? I'd be in line, ordering a smoothie. That's just reality. Maybe not the next morning. Okay, maybe I go out and I buy all my friends' houses and pull in Elvis Presley, get everyone Cadillacs or something. But sooner or later, after vacation or whatever, I'd be in line and I'd be ordering a smoothie and I'd be high-fiving the kids behind the counter from the other side instead of where I am. So I love it. I love what I do. And I encourage anybody, if you feel like you're in touch with your purpose and you know what your purpose is, then go do it. But again, I don't want to hear about your passion. I don't want to hear about how, oh man, I just want to travel and I just want to do a blog. Well, that's so original. Wait, you want to travel to exotic places and post about it on Instagram and write about it? That's incredible. I would have never thought about that. We've all thought about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you feel like you're in touch with your purpose, put one foot in front of the other and start walking towards your purpose. Start walking towards your goal. And if you really want to get there fast, get on your knees and ask God for help. And I promise you, whether you believe or not, God is going to help you. I promise. And other than that, I think I've probably grossed a few of you out. I've probably inspired a few of you. I've probably pissed a few of you off. I've probably put a few of you to sleep. I feel like I've said all I need to say. And do I open this up to questions or no? Great, yeah, we have time for a couple questions. So if anybody has any questions, please don't be afraid to raise your hand. Yes, sir.
How did you get what do you feel like was the turning point for your mindset to get you, to grow your businesses and really where was that turning point you felt like you had the mindset that nothing was going to get in your way, that you actually were going for it?
How did I get to the point where I had the mindset to just go for it, completely succeed in business? I found a woman who was much smarter than me that was a finisher. I'm not a finisher. I can sit down with you right after this and I can tell you about 25 amazing million-dollar ideas, and I'm probably not going to do any of them. And for me, and again, look, I'm sure a guy could help me too, but for me, I found a woman who was much, much smarter than me, a much better human being than me, somebody who had the ability to follow through with everything. She was my girlfriend at the time. She's not my girlfriend anymore. We spent 9 years together. She's my business partner now, and I love her dearly, and she's amazing, and she just got back from India, and she brought me these scars that the Dalai Lama had blessed and gave me these beads that the Dalai Lama had blessed, and this was this afternoon. She's this amazing human being named Haley, who's my business partner, and when I went to her and I was like, I want to do, a transitional living and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to get 800 thread count sheets and we're going to put flat screen TVs in every room because no one does that. We're going to get a chef because no one does that. This is 2007. Halfway houses were shitholes, right? I had a great idea. I want to make a halfway house that's really nice. And then people are going to actually want to go there and stay, right? So she then took that and took it to fruition. When I wanted to open up SunLife Organics, yeah, I convinced some dude to give me a couple $100,000. I had the ability to save up I had $55,000 at that time to contribute towards that business. But getting money together is not that difficult, especially if you're honest and you're trustworthy, right? Following through, I can't do it. I can't do it. I just don't. I have an assistant. She doesn't even live here. Her whole job is to just make sure that I show up because I cannot show up. I will bump into you in the hallway, and 3 hours later, I'm begging you to have dinner with me so we can talk about your life and about God and whatever. In the meantime, I miss 4 appointments. So I keep my ringer on, and I have an assistant who just makes sure that I show up. So for me, it was about and again, this isn't feigned humility. I have no problem with not being intelligent. I really don't. I don't care. For me, it was about recognizing my limitations. If I'm not a finisher, I better find a finisher. Now, maybe if she were here, she would say that she wasn't a starter. Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't speak for her. But she was the opposite. She was educated, brilliant, smart. She was able to take my idea and take it to fruition. And she runs the company now. I guess we co-CEO it, but, whatever. I don't know what that means. Who else had their hand up?
Do you have children? If no, why not? And if you do, what's your philosophy on parenting?
Yeah, most of the people that work for my company are children or kids, 15 to 50, but many of them are kids, so I kind of feel like I have a couple hundred kids. But some days more than others. I don't have any kids. I've never been married. I don't think anyone can tolerate me long enough. I'm unbearable. And as time has progressed, I've put things in place to sort of allow me to just be who I am and allow me to be in situations where it's okay. I don't think I'm ever going to change. And to be honest with you, if I wanted to change, I would change. So no one has ever stuck around long enough to have kids with me. I don't think anyone ever felt like it was a good idea because I'm incredibly immature. They say when you start drinking and using drugs, your emotional development freezes. And, you know, this is not shock value. I was 8 years old. I was 9 years old. I was smoking pot with the 13 and the 14-year-old kids because I wanted someone to pay attention to me. I wanted someone to love me, right? So my emotional development was so severely arrested that even though I'm now 15 years into recovery, I'm probably at the level of someone who's in their very early 20s. And that's not somebody you want to have a kid with, I don't think. So my philosophy is I think it's the highest form of spirituality if you can pull it off. I've had 2 friends in the last few years who were in their 50s have kids for the first time. 3, sorry. 2 were men. 1 was a woman, and she was 42. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to them. As a man, I think being a husband, being a father, being devoted, being faithful, and being a great dad, I think that's the highest form of spirituality that one can attain. That's just my, I look at Darshan, and, I want to be like that someday. Not just tall and handsome and tan, but yeah, I think I'll get there. I think I'm close. I think I've put enough buffers in to where someone will stick around now. I'm 49. Yeah. So I think I'm still producing sperm. Okay. Okay. According to my telomere test, my body is in its 20s. I never stopped, by the way, the detoxifying and the purifying and the enhancing and that's why I gravitated towards this place. This is a true story. I was pounding on the door long before they ever opened. I could feel that something magical was going to go on here. And the fact that Kevin is the president, and one of the owners, it was so weird. I was trying to pry the door open, and he finally opened it up, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I heard this place and IVs and cryotherapy and whatever. And he's just like, yeah, man, we're going to be open in 2 months. And I'm like, are you from Malibu? And he's like, yeah. Are you from Malibu? I'm like, yeah. And then it turns out we took acting class together 15 years ago. So pretty amazing. I'm obsessed. The IVs, the cryotherapy, the ice baths, the far infrared sauna, most recently the NAD. I'm tripping on that. That stuff is incredible. I'm talking about the intravenous stuff. I do the capsules too, but only because Darshan told me to. He said it's good to keep doing it in between, your sessions or whatever. I've messed around with human growth hormone. I had amazing results right out the gate, and then they faded really fast. And then I wasn't getting anything. And I'm like, I don't want to get up every morning and do this shit. This is weird. It feels weird to be poking holes in myself like that. How about I just go do some squats and some deadlifts? I can produce my own growth hormone if I do some heavy lifting, some squats and some deadlifts, and eat some grass-fed beef and butter and egg yolks and whatever. And it worked. We just tested my testosterone. And for a 49-year-old dude, I'm doing pretty good. It's not way, way, way up there, but for somebody who, when I was in my early 40s, I went to Uzi Rice in Beverly Hills, and they did my hormone tests. My hormones were that of a 65-year-old man. My testosterone was a 180, right? My growth hormone was non-existent. If you shoot enough coke and heroin and take enough pills and not eat for long enough, sooner or later you destroy your endocrine system and your hormone levels and all that stuff. I was able to bring just about everything back to phenomenal levels. But yeah, I come in here, I mean, I haunt this place. I'm always coming in and asking, what's going on? What can we do next? I'm always texting these guys. So I love this place, love my life. I hope I've answered everybody's questions. I think we got some smoothies. Guys, that is matcha. Are those matcha goddesses? Oh, okay. There's a little bit of caffeine in those matcha goddesses, so if you're super sensitive, don't drink them. What's the other smoothies we brought? Wolverine's amazing. Can't go wrong. Wolverine is almond butter, dates, raw cacao beans, royal jelly, bee pollen. That's the OG. That's the original smoothie that I made. We talked about it on the podcast. Yeah, that's my first recipe. That's the one. When I was trafficking narcotics back and forth across the United States before I got arrested and became a convicted felon, there was these amazing diners, I don't know what you call them, but they were called Stuckies. And they had these incredible date shakes. And I fell in love with these date shakes. And then eventually, it evolved into the Wolverine. It's a long story, but whatever. So we got Wolverines, and is that it?
Wolverines and matcha goddesses, yeah. And if you're vegan, definitely go for the Wolverine because there's whey protein in matcha goddesses.
All right, but if you're super strict vegan, keep in mind there is bee products in there. So don't come and scream at me because I made you eat a bee product. I really, 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 really appreciate you guys coming out. I mean, this is incredible. It's fucking pouring out there. And thanks for listening.
Wow, that was absolutely blew me out of the water. What an inspirational speaker, inspirational man. I'm so lucky to call you a friend and a neighbor, and just so honored to have him here. We really got lucky to have Khalil here. So thank you so much for doing this. Amazing. One more round of applause. So before we let you go, I just have a few quick announcements to make. I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Next Health in 2019. 2019 is really our year to bring everything that we want to do to Next Health. And we're going to start off by launching a few new programs and items that we want to tell you about that we're very proud of. The first one that we're going to start actually tomorrow, we're launching tonight actually, is our stem cell program. So after about a year of extensive research on safety, on meeting almost hundreds of doctors and scientists that have done stem cells and have been really looking into the science around it. We feel comfortable offering this at Next Health now. We have picked one of the safest products out there, and we're launching this tomorrow. So check your email box. You will definitely get an announcement on it, on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and we're really proud to bring that to the general public in Next Health. It used to be you could only get it at a concierge doctor, or you'd have to travel to Panama or someplace. We're going to bring this to Los Angeles at Next Health. Secondly, we are offering what I call the physical exam for the 21st century. It's called the Human Longevity Institute program. We partner with Peter Diamandis' company, who was one of our forefront guests here as well, down in San Diego. It's called the Human Longevity Institute. And what we're doing is we're doing a full body MRI scan, full genome sequencing, and full blood marker testing on you. And we're putting all that data into an artificially intelligent system to constantly churn out new associations with disease that we can share with you. So this is an incredible program. I call it the physical exam for the 21st century because we are really getting an in-depth look at your brain, your heart, every organ system. 10 to 15% of people that we do this on actually get diagnosed with something they had no idea that they had. And we're proud to offer that one as well, and that will be launched next month. So now's a really exciting time to stay in touch with us, to come to these Forefront Series talks. We have an incredible lineup of Forefront Series talks as well. Our next speaker is Ben Greenfield. Does anyone know who Ben Greenfield is? Yes. He's partnering with us, and he's actually flying out just to be here and do this talk for you. It's going to be an incredibly jam-packed event. We can only fit this many people in here, so register as soon as you get the email invite. You'll be getting that soon. Other than that, also for everyone today, we have a certificate for a week of cryo. So if you haven't tried cryo, we'd love for you to try it for a week, and a vitamin shot, right? So that's also our gift to you for attending today. We are so grateful that all of you showed up. Thank you for braving the rain and coming here. Thank you.
And if you guys want to get smoothies, jump up and grab some. And for the free cryo and the B shot, I think Kaylee has them or Vanessa has them. Where? They're going to be at the front with the passes, so just grab them on your way out.